Good day, everyone. Thanks for stopping by Ferg TV. I'm Ray.
And
This
Sue.
is Sue. And we just got back from, well, not just, but our last trip was to Jefferson,
New
New
Hampshire.
Hampshire. And one of the places that we went and didn't film, we're pretty good at this, we went up to North Conway. It was a rainy day, and we were just trying to splish splash through everything. And we weren't real excited about anything, and we didn't tape. But anyway, one of the things that we did that we were excited about was
We went to in North Conway. We went over to the North Conway Olive Oil Company, and as you can see, they had lots of different.
more than oils, though, right?
Oh, it was balsamic vinegar too.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, we got this infused olive oil, and it was a very good pairing to go with the Sicilian lemon, which could be used for chicken, for fish, and we're looking forward to trying it.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to figure out how to store them on the countertop in the camper as we go down the road.
Yeah, so that we don't have to move them all the time. So we're just going over our
Options.
options. And as I look, I kind of broke my train of thought because I was looking at these, and that was a mistake, not buying more.
Oh yeah, that's gonna go up there. We gotta figure out movement for that
So,
too.
we were kind of, I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but there was a lot of different possibilities, and we were kind of into the different oils, the vinegars, and the pairings, and they keep giving you little shot glasses of all of this stuff, and you get to taste it. Not that they were filling them, but little plastic, little things about like this size, and they'd put a little taste in the bottom, and you got to try it. So then they would do the match where this one, pairings rather, where this one goes best with this. And so we were figuring out what to get. And so by the time we got to the counter, we had purchased 6. And when you buy 6, you get a 7th one free. So then we had to go back and figure out what we were going to get for that. And I think we made all good decisions. We were happy with everything. What was our 7th one? It was that cranberry something or other, was
Yes,
it? Cranberry pear?
I think I don't remember, but we have a blood orange infused olive oil with a cranberry pear white balsamic vinegar.
And I think that was our very last
Yeah.
decision.
I think that's what we had gone with.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. But by the time we got done doing all of that, because we probably spent half
Oh, at least a half
to
hour
3/4 of
40
an hour doing this, and we had a great guy helping us. He was really patient. And anyway, when we got to the counter, I saw these, and I said, "Oh, maybe we want to think about a couple of those."
Yeah.
And then we saw these, and I said, "Do we really need stoppers for them? We just put the cap back on." Then he showed us that actually the top comes off, and it actually works pretty good with these things. So then at that point it said, "Oh, these were 5
Yep.
and 250."
Yep.
I'm thinking, I'm trying to tally up in my head what we spent on oils, and I'm saying we probably dropped $100 on the oils and vinegar.
For all.
What was it?
$101 for all.
101 for everything with these.
With these.
Yeah. So then, you get going and you start, we already left and even left North Conway, and you're starting to think,
Should have gotten one for each.
we should have gotten one for each. Because we would have needed, what, one more of those? One more of these because for the oils we only had 3, right? And 4 vinegars, or
Right.
so we
yes.
needed 2 more of
and
these.
One of these.
So I think we're going to go online. Not we. When I say we, use one more bottle of something you might want to get.
Yep, I think I'm looking at the basil infused olive oil,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna get enough of these for each bottle.
Yep.
And now you're looking at how to store it.
That's where I come in. So I said, well, I can build a nice little wooden rack here that we can use the command strips and hold it to the wall. So we're going to end up with 8 bottles, I think, when we're done. And it won't matter if I do them for 8 anyway. We'll just leave one empty place for later on down the road if we want. But then we're saying, well, you kind of coming over where you cook and where the heat comes out. So maybe we'll move 4 of them down here on the other side and leave 4 over here. And when I build it, I'm going to put a spacer in between each one so that they don't hit on the way down the road. And then we'll put the other 4 over here. And
we should keep them away from the stove.
yeah, so that's where we are at this moment in time. So the next step is to go into the shop and get it to come together. And I think that's that sounds like my task for today. I haven't figured out what finish I'm going to put on it, if I'll polyurethane it or if I'll put an Ilver spray on it, which Ilver would be the nicest way to go. But you got to mix everything up, and it's expensive, which is not a problem. I already own it. But the problem is mixing small amounts. It's catalyzed, and once you mix it, you either use it or lose it. I'll think about it and see what I want to do. It's much quicker to do it with the Ilver than it is with the polyurethane, because there's such an open time on it. It just stays open for so long that polyurethanes are always subject to getting stuff into the finish because they stay what we call open, where they're not sealed up, and so things can stick to it. So I'll figure that out in the shop.
I'm sure you will.
But I think we'll make 2 racks is the way to go on this. All right, so I'll meet you up in the shop and I'll show you how we're going to do this. And it is another day. I quit yesterday. I didn't really quit. I never started. I decided to come up with a plan instead of just working off of a matchbook cover. Although, might not be one of my best plans. I'm kidding. I did draw a set of plans. And because of the size of this project, I was able to do it full scale on a piece of 8.5 by 11. So this is going to be the unit if it was on the counter like this. So you're looking at an elevation, front elevation, although the rear is the same elevation. So I now have all my dimensions and where all my pieces go. And this is looking down at it like a floor plan. And because it's to scale, you can put a bottle right in there and say, how's that going to work out? Geez, it looks pretty darn good. So I'm going to put these little corner supports in all the way around. And then in the end corners, they're going to run top to bottom. That'll be my outside support. So I think it's going to be a pretty cool little project. And the next important thing that I did is I came up with a full material list or a cut list. And it's ×2 because I did this as if it was 1 unit, but we're building 2. So let's get going. I found my material. These are junk. I did start with that. I just jotted my numbers down before I started my drawings. I've got my bottoms here. I'm going to cut them out first because I've got the plywood blade already on there, so I might as well utilize it before I change blades. Then I found a piece of maple that I'm going to be able to resaw because I only need 3/16, and I've got each side marked on what I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to get everything out of this with the exception of bottoms. Of course, they're coming out of the plywood over there. And these little corner supports. I'll get them out of another piece. I got some other short pieces here. This one's going to be more than enough to get my corner pieces out. So let's get going. We'll set up and we'll cut out our bottoms and then we'll go into resawing this. Okay, it's always a good idea when you're cutting multiples to set up a stop, and that way you don't have to remeasure, but more importantly, they're all the same. Now they are going on 2 different units, but I'd like everything to be the same. So we're going to trim our end. 8 9/16 is what we need. So if you measure and cut wrong here, you got 2 wrong, or 3, or 10, or whatever it might be. So you need to make sure that you get the right amount measured out. Okay, we want to be right there. Bring our stop over. And then we'll recheck it once we clamp it to make sure we're on our line. Good. So that put it right on our line there. All right, we're going to cut this end. Because these are long enough, I could have gotten 2 out of it, but that was the first one I had to take off, so I had to take a second one off. They're just basically, not really scrap, but things I haven't used yet. So that makes those the same. Don't need the rest of that. Okay, on to the next step. Now we're going to change blades so we can resaw our material. I do have one with a thin kerf on it. We'll use that. Thin kerf meaning that the cutter or teeth are not quite as wide as my other blade. But with that, you can get a little chatter out of it sometimes. Okay, so I think what we're going to do, we're going to go over, we want to end up at 3/16, and that's going to be close to getting 2 out of it. That's at 1/4. I'm going to go a little under 1/4, and then we're going to run it through the planer, surface planer, and take it down. There's our 2 pieces. So they're both thicker than 3/16. We'll run them through the planer now, surface planer, thickness planer, and dial them in, baby, and then we'll run them through the sander, and then we can start to rip out our pieces and cut them to size. Okay, let's get set up with the sander. We're a little over 3/16. We're looking good. The next step is to dial it in with the sander. So I'll get set up to do that. It is another day. Yesterday, I had every intention of running these through the sander. And if you remember, we set up to do that. And then yesterday was kind of a mixed cloud and sun kind of day, and it wasn't terribly warm. And I had one more soft start to put on my 3rd air conditioner, actually the one that I had to replace because of putting the soft start on incorrectly on the first one. It wasn't a wiring issue. It was too close to a tiny copper pipe, and it broke it. So I had to bite the bullet. It was a tough one to swallow. I'm still chewing on it. And replace the AC. With a new unit, which I did. So anyway, my wife reminded me that yesterday was the better of the 2 days between yesterday and today to go up on the roof of the RV and change that soft start. And I didn't want to do it yesterday. because I was in motion of doing this, and I geared up in my mind to work on this, and I said, that's it, I quit. I'm going to go put it on. And I did. And in the end, well, my wife was right again. Shh, don't tell her that. She'll get a big head. So I'm really glad I did it yesterday. And today we're back in the shop. It's a little warmer outside. It isn't so much about how warm it's going to get today, although it is going to be a little warmer. It's that full sun and never getting a break in the clouds. It'd be warm up there today. So here we are back in the shop, right where I left off yesterday. And I told my wife this was going to happen. I said, I'm going to go back in the shop and nothing's going to be done. It's going to be right in the same place as I left it. And sure enough, it is. So here we go. We're going to start sanding these to thickness now. And what I've done is, when I laid it out, I put all my numbers up there, and then I just transferred them to the side. So when I sand it, I won't lose everything, and I'll know what's going to come out of what. Okay, let's get this sander going. Let's rock and roll, baby. Time is a-wasting. I guess I should tell you what we're doing here. I forgot all about doing that. It's part of the education process of this. And so what we're going to do with the sander here is I'm not going to change grits. Normally you would, for a little thickness sanding, we'll call it, reducing the thickness of it, you'd go with a heavier grit and then work your way down to a finer grit. But I got a fairly new 150 grit on here. And I ran the pieces through the thickness planer, and we're in pretty good shape. I don't have to take an awful lot off. So because of that, I'm going to stay with just the 150 grit. And we'll do a little thickness sanding with it because we don't have to take much off. And that's it. Now you know what I know, which isn't a heck of a lot. Hey, this might be a great opportunity to go give it the old up yours. Don't do it for me. Do it for YouTube. They love that sort of thing. They have a whole team of people that count these things night and day. And if you don't do it, you're going to put somebody out of work, and you don't want to do that. All right, let's get this thing going. Next little process, put this light on, that we need to do is we need to create these corner supports here, corner bracing. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to cut off the corner of, I guess we're up here, corner of this board. And I can't get two out of there because it's 3/8 of an inch across that line. If you come back 3/8, that doesn't leave enough room for the blade to get in there and cut. So you're only going to get one out of each corner. So what we'll do is we're going to get this squared away, right? That's a really ragged, rough edge. We'll joint that. We'll then rip a nice parallel line, and we'll joint that edge. And in that respect, we'll have two good corners, right? We'll sand it, and this will be sanded already. This will be a good jointed edge. And then the only thing that's going to be, well, I don't know if you saw that, but then this will be a good jointed edge. And then when we cut across here, that's going to be kind of ragged. I'll show you how we're going to handle that. So let's get set up on the joiner, and that'll be our next step, is to joint that edge, clean it up good in a minute. Okay, let's get some suction going, baby. So to perform this little miracle, we measured 3/8 of an inch over here, and then we traced our 45 line across there. And then I just simply lined it up with the blade over here where it's going to cut, and I've left it over the line. So it's going to be thicker than what we want, because I'm going to show you how we're going to dial them in. Let's get this one cut, then I'll have to reset for the other one. So there's our piece. We're good here, we're good here. This is the only thing that's not good. It's certainly going to be seen. All right, you can see how ragged it is. I'm going to show you how we're going to take care of that. I'm going to set up and do a couple of cuts on that small board, and then we'll be ready to go to the next level. I'll show you how we're going to straighten them out. And we're going to go through the sander with them, even though they're a little angled piece. So here's what we're doing. We want to do 4 of these at once. So I gave myself a center line on everything. Then I worked off the center line to come up with where I need to make my cut. And let's see if I can show you where we're going to be at here. And I think I might stay to the inside of these lines, stay just a little under. The smaller I make it, the more the piece pops up. So if I go right there, I don't know, we're up enough. We just want to clean it up, you know. If you can see that, I don't know if you got a good visual or not. But here's where the problem comes in. Starting and stopping this thing. So, you know, that's the task at hand. So let me see what I can do. I got a capacitor that's going on this thing. Just started. So starting it and stopping it. Stopping it's not a problem. Starting it is become an issue. So whether it starts again or not, I don't know. So getting all my setups to do this might be a task. Who knows? We're going to find out. No. You're not going to do this while that saw is running. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. Okay, we have what I'll call a cradle, right? A jig that's going to support our pieces to go through the sander. The reason that you needed to dial it in, I kept checking and checking, is because if this is wider on this one than it is on that one, then this one would sit prouder, and when you get done sanding them, they won't be the same. If you go down too far, then you won't be able to hit the top of them. So it's, I don't know, I wouldn't call it critical, but it's important that they're all the same. All right, so that's what our cradle looks like, all loaded up. This is the only part of this whole process that hasn't been sanded yet, and we're going to go through and take care of that now. Okay, so I wanted to wait to cut these pieces at the same time. So those pieces that we just made, 2 of them on each end are going to go in the corners, but they're also going to go from top to bottom, or top to the 1/2 inch bottom. And so the center dividers are also going to go from top to the top of the bottom, the 1/2 inch plywood bottom. So it's kind of important to cut all of these. We'll set one stop, we'll cut all of these at the same time, and everything will match up. So that's why I waited on them. That's our next step, and then we start doing a little hand sanding. We start putting this guy together. It's time now to cut our center dividers and our little end supports. So they're all going to be 5.5 inches. So we're going to cut this square and end up. So 5.5. And by cutting them all at the same time, if something's off a little bit, they'll all be off a little bit, and they'll all be equal. And that's really all that we care about at this point on this thing. So we got a mark. My hand is not on the trigger, by the way. I know people will be nervous. You're going to lose a hand. And that's not true. It'd only be a finger. All right. You know, after you get bit a couple of times on these tools, you tend to not take any risk. So, not to worry. Although, not to say that sometimes you have to do something that you'd be happier if you didn't do, but all right. Even that one. Ooh, boy, that is like right there. It's a little shy, but we got our pieces, and that is all that matters. So by now, I think you can see the value of setting up a stop, right? It's very big. It's huge. That should be our 8. 5/8. Yeah, we're definitely going to have a stick in there holding that. I'm not putting my hand in there. That I can tell you. Now, is that going to clear to cut? Yeah. Yep, I think it will. But we need a stick. Or a volunteer, one of the two. Probably be easier to get a stick. Volunteers are hard to come by. Especially when you're asking them to do this. Yikes. How about if we do this? How would that be? Well, that's not working because it's not, the God is not letting you go by. So maybe you gotta do this. Geez, who came up with this idea? And being the only one out here, I'd say it was me. There's one. See, that's all I need. Get that thing. We don't have enough as it is. All right. Oh boy. This is crazy. You know, it kind of looks worse than it is. It's not that big a deal. Huh. I had a friend used to always say, no guts, no glory. Well, he's not with us anymore. That doesn't always work. All right. Enough of that negative talk. Let's get this guy in there. So basically you got to get this down, get the guard past the stick. Oops, and then try not to slide it out. Alright, I'm not going to bore you with this. I'm going to cut them all out. I hope I got enough, and then I'll come back and wrestle you up. Just kind of breaking these edges. We don't want them to be sharp. And then the other thing that's going to happen with these is these are going into the corner, so this is actually seen. It'll be sticking out. In the two in the front anyway, the ones in the back you'll never see. But because of that, I just want to break the edge a little bit. So if you touch it, it feels good. And that's about all we're doing. Not even going to sand the little guys. You're just not going to see them. They're just getting tucked inside, and so there's very little hand sanding. The only other thing I want to do is probably break the edges on the support pieces going around. I'll call them rails for lack of a better term, upper and lower rails. And that's about that. All right, so you got an idea what we're doing. I'll come back and grab you in a minute. Unfortunately, it looks like we're running a little long on this video, so I'm going to cut it right here. We'll call this part 1, and then stay tuned for part number 2. Thanks for joining me on Ferg TV, and if you got enough mustard left in you, you know the drill. Go give it the old up yours. All right, we'll see you on part 2.